The North American International Toy Fair is an annual trade event focused on the toy industry that has been going on since 1903, if you can believe it. That is 122 years of Toy Fair, give or take a couple thanks to a certain pandemic. For Transformers enthusiasts like myself, the news coming from Toy Fair is super exciting because it's where we see what the toy shelves are going to look like over the next year. And Hasbro tends to reveal new Transformers stuff they're working on. What's good, internet? Jake here. Dumb as ever, and 2025's Toy Fair has been full of amazing reveals. I don't usually cover Transformer toy news on the channel, but I feel like there's so much to talk about here and that I might try it for once and see how you guys like it. In this video, I'm going to discuss some of the most interesting reveals I've seen come out of Toy Fair and give my opinions on them as a long-time and open-minded Transformers fan. My goal is to only discuss toys revealed at Toy Fair 2025, but if I goof something up and talk about a Transformer that has already been shown, please forgive me. I will be talking about a lot of toys in this video, so I invite you to throw on a Baby Yoda Snuggie and get cozy, comfortable, and enjoy. And maybe like and subscribe to help me defeat the antagonist of Space Jam 2, Algae Rhythm. Okay, I'm going to start with some miscellaneous second-party stuff that I found interesting. Yolopark showed off their AMK Minis line, which is a line of about deluxe-sized buildable figures. The character selection is mostly G1, so we got Hot Rod and Cliff Jumper, my two favorite characters. They look fantastic. In fact, all the G1 guys look really good. But what surprised me the most was the 4 non-G1 characters. From the comics, we get IDW Orion Pax, who looks great, and we also get a Bumblebee who might be from the comics, or Cyberverse, or it could just be a normal evergreen design. I can't really tell. If any fans know better than me, please comment down below. Also, his smile is slightly creepy. In addition to those two, we have Bayverse Optimus Prime, who looks amazing, as well as Dark of the Moon Megatron. Megatron does look great sculpt-wise, but I think these are prototype colors because he looks a bit weird, especially compared to Optimus. The AMK mini line kind of just looks like a good version of Hasbro's Red line, which I'm all for. There's also a new line from Ty called Beanie Bouncers, which seem to be bouncy balls covered in plush. They're making an Optimus, Megatron, and Bumblebee. I probably won't buy these because my dog would maul them, but they're pretty cute. In the same vein, we have a line of plushes coming from TeeTurtle. The larger plushes are fine, cute, but not my thing, but I'm absolutely enamored with their reversible plushies line, featuring some classic characters like Starscream, Bumblebee, Optimus, and Megatron as adorable little balls. These balls can be turned inside out to reveal their alt modes, which are even goofier. Just look at Optimus, who they did manage to make slightly more square. He even has his trailer. Megatron turns into a tank. Sorry, no handgun plushie this time, but I do love how they added the tank turret at the top. Starscream's jet mode is absolutely hilarious. He looks more dolphin shaped than anything, and I love him. The best in the line have to be Cheetor and Optimus Primal, who are getting included in these second-party toys that use evergreen designs more and more often. Cheetor is such an adorable cheetah. It reminds me the most of a Squishmallow in terms of design. I love the emerald green eyes. They look textured. The best figure has to be Optimus Primal. His robot mode is adorable as the rest, looking a bit worried, as Primal tends to be. But his gorilla form is so cute. Oh my god, the monkey sphere. I love his red eyes and the big forehead. These guys are coming in blind boxes, which I don't love, but if I end up with two, at least I can keep them in different modes. Also, the Optimus and Bumblebee come in big sizes if you want a pillow-sized plushie. Next up, we have the Hot Wheels collab. This was maybe one of the biggest surprises of the show because I think we knew a Hot Wheels collab was coming due to listings, but I would have expected to see the Sonic set here. These are transforming versions of the iconic Hot Wheels cars Twin Mill and Bone Shaker, and I actually predicted these would be the exact cars in the last episode of my Transformers podcast, Bat Kibble. I mean, it's not crazy prediction by any means. Twin Mill and Bone Shaker are some of the most iconic Hot Wheels original designs, but it's nice to be right sometimes, okay? I think this is a great collab, and to me it makes the most sense out of all the other collabs, as these are two brands based primarily around cars that have been around for a long time. It's almost surprising this hasn't happened sooner. Both of their vehicle modes look spectacular. It's so rare to see Transformers with an open top and molded seats like Bone Shaker has, and the paint for both is on point. Twin Mill seems to have some flame effects. I'm assuming they're removable. His vehicle mode is absolutely beautiful. The paint is perfection, and if you were just looking at this picture, you may not realize it isn't a Hot Wheels car. Bone Shaker's robot mode is weaker between the two. His feet in particular look like chunky blocks. I love his head sculpt with the pipes from his alt mode being designed onto the side of his head, and I dig his visor and faceplate look. The big front piece of the car mode being his chest is is so awesome. Twinmail is the big winner out of the two. He seems almost like an alternate universe Sideburn from RID-01. Again, the paint looks fantastic, and I love that his engines become weapons for him in robot mode. Twinmail and Bone Shaker both look fantastic, and honestly, they feel like they could be actual characters in the lore. At least more so than any other Transformers collaboration. I haven't talked about the Energon universe much on the channel, but I am an avid fan of the universe and have been reading since Void Rivals, which is actually the comic book that kicked off the universe, in case you haven't read it. Void Rivals 1 was not actually advertised as a Transformers comic at first, but in the first issue, Jetfire is awoken on an asteroid by the main characters and flies off, and it seems like the most random cameo ever. But the end of the issue announced the Energon universe as a thing, with G.I. Joe and Transformers comics on the way. It's been over a year since the universe started, and I really feel like it may be my favorite Transformers universe and story. And that first issue of Void Rivals is so important to me because it not only introduced the universe, but it did it in a way that not only didn't distract from the comic's own story, but also made my mind go wild with the possibilities of what we could see in the universe. And the universe has definitely lived up to my expectations. At Toy Fair, they announced something super exciting, a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive pack based on the first issue of Void Rivals, featuring a slight repaint of Siege Commander class Jetfire and 3 3/4 inch action figures of Darak and Solila, the main characters of Void Rivals. The Jetfire has very minor redecos, with his feet in particular being gray instead of black, and his Autobot symbol is also unpainted since Jetfire doesn't have one, because he left Cybertron before the war really began. I wonder if his Decepticon symbol is also unpainted. This Jetfire is one of the most well-regarded Transformers of all time, maybe, and I don't have him yet, so that's awesome. But the Darak and Solila figures are really what interests me, because they are actually based on the original G.I. Joe toys. The G.I. Joe Real American Hero line used a style of action figures that became known as O-rings because of how they are constructed using rubber bands to hold the toy together. I think it's really awesome that Darak and Solila are based on the Real American Hero toys because you can fit them in with your vintage G.I. Joes. Their designs look perfect and they both come with their weapons from the comic. I love Darak's design in particular, so it would be so cool to have this. Oh, and it also comes with an exclusive variant of Void Rivals issue 1, which is nice. If you haven't been reading the Energon universe, I highly recommend it. Hell, you can just read Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson and have a great time. Though Void Rivals has many more connections to Transformers, and Jetfire is not the only Cybertronian to appear. A new Transformers toy line was announced, and I'm super excited to discuss it. This is Transformers Cyberworld. This new toy line is geared towards kids, but I gotta say, I see a lot to appreciate myself. They're taking the multiverse aspect of the Generations line and just making up new versions of the characters, which I think is super fun. And this is kind of what I've been wanting for a while, just creative, new ideas, rather than relying on G1 nostalgia. The line is mostly made up of smaller figures, think core or legend size, as well as some much larger Transformers, with the biggest being this Skorponok toy. Everything I see from this guy makes me like him more. He's essentially a Transformer that is a playset, with platforms and turrets on his body that the basic size figures can use. And part of his tail even comes off and becomes a little hover bike for smaller figures, which is awesome. This Skorponok definitely has shades of Energon in his design, especially the head design, but he's also very much doing his own thing, with blue being his main color instead of purple. His transformation looks a little bit lackluster though. He just lays on his face. To match him, there's also Grimlock on the Autobot side. Optimus and I assume other basic figures can ride on him. His T-Rex mode is a bit awkward looking, but his robot mode is really interesting. He's essentially like Grimlock with Beast Wars Megatron's transformation scheme, which I think works well. Also, his tail / left arm is a Gatling gun, which is cool. I think this is a neat toy for sure, and basic figures can also sit in his chest and use his body like a bionicle Exotoa. We have our usual stuff like Optimus and Bumblebee, but we also have Megatron, but a bull. His name? Megabull. obviously. The bull mode for Megatron is a little weak, honestly, and they used it for 2 other characters, Snarl, who turns into a dinosaur-shaped creature, as usual, and Galvatron, who has a beast mode. This guy is not really giving Galvatron for me. He looks more like Rodimus Unicronus with that mustache. One of my favorite remix characters is Sky-Byte, who they literally just gave wheels. I've seen a lot of people say he looks like a Hot Wheels car, and I agree. And I love it. What a goober. Another cool take is Mirage, who turns into a jet in this version, though his face sculpt looks off. I also like how his jet mode has forward swept wings, though it seems like you can't angle them yourself. Bizarrely, they also remolded a Hound figure from the Last Night into Megatron with the G2 deco. For context, this Hound came out in 2018, so it's an odd choice for a new figure, though Hasbro does this every so often. Finally, a Megatron built like me. Jokes aside, I hate the G2 colors and I have no interest in a 7-year-old toy, so pass. At the Toy Fair floor, they had a few figures that weren't in the main announcement, including an Insecticon Barrage, who we don't know what he turns into, assuming a bug, to be honest, an Alita one that becomes a boat, and Off-Road Optimus and Bumblebee, along with a Starscream. One interesting thing about these figures is that Off-Road Bumblebee looks suspiciously similar to Reactivate Bumblebee, which, in case you don't know, was a video game that was cancelled after being developed for years. And some toys were released by Hasbro because they were developed before they knew the game was going to be cancelled. The Starscream on display also uses a lot of black in his color scheme, just like the Reactivate figure. Obviously, these aren't one for one the same, but you can see where this line of logic is coming from at least. And to add to the conspiracy, someone on Twitter pointed out to me that the background art shows a city with plants growing on the skyscrapers, which usually indicates an apocalyptic situation, much like the original Reactivate trailer showed. The Off-Road Optimus is the odd one out here because, to my knowledge, we never saw an Optimus design for Reactivate, even from leaks. I wouldn't put too much thought into any of this though. If these were originally Reactivate figures, they aren't anymore. So it is fun to think about. Okay, let's talk about the big stuff, the new reveals for the Transformers Generation lines. For those out of the loop, Transformers has 2 main collector's lines, Studio Series to cover the movies and video games, and the new Age of the Primes line, which is replacing Legacy. But for the most part, Age of the Primes is carrying on the theme of celebrating every generation of Transformers with a wide range of characters. Let's start with Studio Series, as it only had a few reveals. First things first, we're getting a repack of 86 Perceptor with more flat colors to represent the movie better, I guess. He also comes with a new deco of Ratbat, which is nice to see because he's been hard to come by for a while, as well as Ramhorn, Blaster's little Rhino Recordicon, which I believe is a whole new mold. This is going to be a part of a subline called the More Than Meets the Eyes collection, which I believe is a Target exclusive line. The only other figure I know of in the line right now is an Overload reissue. It's pretty annoying to me that they're reissuing Perceptor since I recently bought him, but Ramhorn and Ratbat call to me like sirens to a ship captain. The only other Studio Series reveal was this 2-pack, featuring the generic enemies from the video game Transformers Devastation, called Elite Seeker and Ground Soldier. The Devastation Prime looks like a very so-so toy, and these are repaints of most toys people consider fine. I know parts of the fandom have beef with the Earthrise Seeker mold, but personally I don't mind it that much. The Seeker is pretty boring, but I really love how the Ground Soldier looks. In the game, the Ground Soldiers are recolors of Runamuck and Runabout, and that's exactly what this toy is. I really dig the blue with the cel-shaded windshield. My biggest complaint about the Devastation toys so far is that they don't lean into the cel-shaded look of the game, which is like its main thing in my mind. These toys should look way more like the 35th anniversary figures. Okay, on to Age of the Primes, which had some absolutely insane reveals that I'm so excited to talk about. On night 1, they did a small reveal of 3 figures, one of which being Crasher, who is a repack from the Walmart exclusive Velocitron line from a few years ago. Hopefully that means they'll repack Override and some of the other figures from that line as well. Alchemist Prime is one of the 13 Primes from the line, and he looks very okay. He's not a flashy dude like some of the other Primes, so he doesn't stand out as much, but but he does look very solid, and I dig his little mustache and goatee thing he's got going on. I especially like the vibe of his vehicle mode. He somehow ended up with an alt mode way closer to Prime Bulkhead than the actual Legacy Prime Bulkhead. Every Prime comes with a unique weapon that will eventually combine together. I've heard that the thing that the weapons will form into will either be the Well of Allsparks or a weapon for Star Optimus Prime, but to my knowledge we don't know yet for sure. Alchemist weapons are these little arm guards that can be used as swords. They can be combined into what kinda look like his eyes but much bigger. I've seen some people on Twitter call them glasses. We also got our first look at the new Combaticons with Vortex, who looks really good. I love the blues and somewhat shiny gunmetal gray colors. Vortex has one of my favorite head styles with the visor and mouthplate. He's a very clean figure, save for some noticeable arm kibble that may get in the way. No offense to Vortex, but the biggest news from his reveal actually came from the side of his box, which shows us our first look at Age of the Prime's Bruticus, who looks really cool, though there's already debates in the community about him, because at least from the box art, he does look like he's going to use something called a combiner skeleton. In case you're out of the loop, there's a huge ongoing debate right now, as some fans hate the use of combiner skeletons, which are essentially frames that you attach combiner pieces to, rather than combining the actual Transformers right together. They still combine, it's just not as combiney. Is that a word? This is a system that was introduced with the last full combiner we got, Minosaur, and was developed as a way to make the combiner more stable. The Age of the Prime's aerial bots is also using a combiner skeleton, while 86 Devastator is using a more traditional combining pattern, though they are adding some extra pieces for stability. Personally, this is the most annoying debate to me ever. Like, if you do not like the skeletons, do not buy them. Vote with your wallet, but I can't be convinced that they're bad toys. They're doing something different, sure, and I do agree that the frames take away some of the fun of combiners, but also these are expensive toys, and I want characters that are A, good on their own, and B, can combine and pose well in combined form. And that's not to say this is impossible to do with traditional combining, but Hasbro gives these designers budgets they need to work within, so if they think this is the best route for combiners, I'm willing to give them a shot at least. And we will really be able to test and compare the two systems in the modern day once 86 Devastator and the aerial bots are all released. Okay, enough yapping about combiners. I'm sure there will be more of that in the future though. Up next, let's discuss some exclusives, with the first being the Amazon exclusive Wreck and Rule Doom Collection Carnivac vs Fistitron 2-pack. Carnivac in G1 is a pretender, a transformer that hides in a bioorganic shell. Carnivac in particular turns into a wolf both as a pretender and a transformer. This new version of Carnivac is a redeco of the Headmaster Weirdwolf, meaning Carnivac is also a headmaster, which means his head can pop off and turn into a little dude. It's kind of funny how he's from one gimmick line in G1 and ended up being a redeco of a dude from another gimmick line. Fistitron has a name so bad it's funny, and is a remold of Hound, and he looks pretty cool. I dig the blue and orange, and when I first saw him I thought it was a half-assed attempt at an animated Sentinel Prime, but no, he's just a classic Glupshido Transformers character that only appeared in the European Transformers toy line. The gimmick of the OG toy was a giant weapons platform, which they didn't really replicate, but the vehicle mode matches pretty well to the original. And to be honest, none of the recent Amazon stuff has interested me. The next toys are going to be exclusive to Walmart in a new capsule line dedicated to Transformers Cybertron, as it's the show's 20th anniversary this year. They showed off a red repaint of Hotshot named Excellion, who looks fine, but I don't really like this design or mold, so I'm probably skipping him. What I will not be skipping is Sideways, who is a picture-perfect remake of the original toy, though he doesn't use any clear plastic and has better articulation. Sideways was one of my favorite toys and characters from Cybertron, and this toy does him justice. His vehicle mode is perfect as well. I've always loved the little spaceship he turns into. I'm curious if he still has the faction switching gimmick on his weapon, or if it's a manual thing now, like most of the Cyber Key effects. I am a bit sad he doesn't use any clear plastic, especially on his head, because the original had really great light piping, because his face was just all clear plastic. But I love this Halloween colored dude, and I hope we'll get Cybertron Soundwave as well to complete the duo. Okay, now we can finally talk about the biggest reveal of the show, Onyx Prime. We knew Onyx was on the way because they showed off his box art at a previous convention, and in my mind I was like, there's no way they don't screw up this centaur looking dude. I'm happy to report I was completely wrong, and this figure looks amazing. Onyx Prime is basically the patron saint of beast transformers, and he has the presence to back that up. He is a triple changer with a main robot mode, a main beast mode, and his centaur mode, which is like a mix of the two. I think all three modes look exceptionally solid. The robot mode especially looks fantastic. I love his helmet that looks like a big bird head, and I really dig the red eyes. He kinda looks like if Beast Wars Skywarp digivolved. They're using a really nice brown color here with just enough silver and gold highlights to break up the colors. I feel like this is a design that could easily look like a mess, but they've done a great job making his silhouette look nice and clean in robot mode. On display, his centaur mode looks a bit awkward, but I think it's just a bad pose they put him in, because the back of the box picture makes the mode look fantastic to me. You can see some elements of the transformation, as the second set of legs actually cover his shoulders in robot mode. As a result, in centaur mode, Onyx looks a bit thinner, and his shoulders in particular look a bit weird. Not weird enough for me to dislike this mode, but it definitely stands out. His helmet also transformed with the bird head covering his face, and that is so awesome. It's like a battle mask, which is rarely something we get from Generations. On the back of the box, we also see him wielding a massive bow and arrow weapon, which looks amazing and fits his theme perfectly. The beast mode is my least favorite, but I really like what they're going for. He turns into a beast that's like a chimera of a bunch of animals. Once again, I think the floor model is mistransformed, because while it has 4 legs, the back of the box shows the creature with 6 legs. Though maybe this is just a hidden 4th option if you don't like the 6 legs look. Maybe Onyx has like a Stitch situation going on where he only has 6 limbs sometimes. I think the head for the beast looks really neat. It looks like organic pieces are growing off of his metal base body or something like that. I don't really like his front beast paws just being his robot hands, but he is a weird monster animal thing, so I can't be that mad. Overall, a fantastic looking figure, and honestly, another all-star release for the 13 Primes. I have always disliked the concept of the 13 Primes, but between Transformers 1 and this toy line, I'm really being sold on the concept, at least in terms of character designs. Okay, that's everything Transformers from Toy Fair, at least the notable stuff anyway. And wow, what a lineup. I'm so genuinely excited for this year, and I can't wait to cover some of this stuff. If you like the video and want me to cover news here more often, let me know in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to support me past that, I also have a YouTube membership that costs $1 and lets you join my private Discord server, where we have a monthly movie night. Our next movie is Small Soldiers on March 8th, which is this Saturday if you're watching this video on release. If you're watching after that, no worries. We'll always be watching more movies. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Ciao.